Chapter 25, Armored Cities. Work on your cities and temples, proud man. Build high as ye may, and strong as ye can. But the marble shall crumble, the pillars shall fall, and time, old time, will be king after all. Old King Time by George P. Morris. In a short time our airship appeared high in the sky, flying swiftly towards us, and in a few moments descended to the water alongside the sleeping Leviathan. Captain Voltano came aboard, and the usual greetings over, announced that repairs were completed. Bidding adieu to the Leviathan's officers and Hartillion, we re-embarked and continued our journey to the north-west over the bay. By evening we had crossed the great Tycho Sea, and a long shoreline appeared in the distant horizon. "That is the continent of Mandal-Untama, our destination," said Dr. Hamovell. "It is 2,500 miles long by 1,500 miles wide, containing an area of about 3 million square miles." "About the size of the United States of America," said I. "On our Martian maps it is designated as the Galileo continent, and is situated in the northwestern hemisphere of the planet. The evening shades were gathering as we crossed the shoreline and advanced several hundred miles in the interior towards the north." "At what hour do the cities light up?" asked the doctor. 8 o'clock precisely," replied Captain Voltano. "It is within 15 minutes, looking at his watch. "We should like to witness it." "Shoot the ship 5 miles above the surface and check her up," ordered the captain. The prow was directed upward, and she rose in great spirals to that height, then paused with a gentle motion of her wings. We ascended the deck. The stars shone bright in the clear sky. Our elevation commanded a view of nearly 200 miles all around. The landscape beneath was immersed in darkness here and there, and a few lights were only seen. Our moons are not up, so much the better for the view," said Dr. Hamovell. 8 o'clock, said the captain, looking at his watch. Instantly 3 long narrow streaks or bands of brilliant light shot like flashes of lightning across the dark landscape from north to the south, as far as the eye could see. One was immediately beneath us. The others spanned the horizon on either side, 200 miles away. The next moment 3 other bands shot from east to west, crossing the former at right angles. They looked like white-hot wire screens of an open latticework, several miles wide and hundreds of miles long. As the ship flew onwards, new bands arose in view one by one, crossing the country in all directions. The dark spaces lying between them resembled immense geometric figures, triangles, parallelograms, etc., traced out by these lines of fire. We were directly over one which stretched from east to west, and was a full 20 miles long. "Lower the ship," ordered the captain, and she slowly descended to within 3,000 feet of the surface, and to my astonishment a vast panorama of countless roofs, rows of magnificent buildings, towers, domes, etc., burst into view, all in a style of architecture unknown on Earth, and brilliantly illuminated with myriads of many-colored lights. There were broad streets thronged with people and vehicles, canals over which sailed pleasure boats, flocks of little airships, and quaint-looking aerial chariots flying to and fro in all directions. As our ship flew onward, we passed over gardens, orchards, cultivated fields, little lakes, woodlands, and long stretches of forest, interspersed with country houses and villas, all over spanned by these bright meshes of latticework, resembling immense ribbons of fiery lace. The whole was elevated high above the topmost trees, buildings and towers, and supported by countless rows of lofty pillars. "You behold one of our great linear cities," said the doctor, "which includes within its domain the charms and beauties of rural scenery, as well as the works of man's industry, science, and art. It is 2,000 miles long, by 20 miles wide, containing an area of 40,000 square miles and a population of 25 million. Nearly equal to half the population of the United States of America," I exclaimed in amazement. "Is it not greatly overcrowded?" Not at all. The citizens enjoy plenty of air, light, and elbow room. Overcrowding of population is unknown on our planet. 12 great linear cities from 1 to 2,000 miles long and 15 to 40 miles wide traverse our continent in crossing lines and accommodate the great bulk of our population without including our smaller cities, country towns, and pleasure resorts, occupying the intervening land spaces, mountain slopes, and seashores. What is the population of your continent? I asked. About 500 million. More than one-third of our globe, with its enlightened, civilized, barbarous, and savage races. Is it possible that your great world, nearly 4 times as large as ours, is so thinly populated? Certain parts of it are very densely populated. In many of our cities, the inhabitants are packed almost cheek by jowl together, and often in a condition of great poverty and suffering. Can it be that your government and municipal authorities permit such a state of things? They seem quite unable to prevent it. You spoke of half-civilized, barbarous, and savage people in your planet. Hardly 1/4 of our population are enlightened or civilized. More than a half are half-civilized, and the remainder are barbarous or savage, I replied. Your terrestrians are truly in a deplorable state. Such a phenomenon as half-civilized, barbarous, or savage race or individuals is unknown on our planet. Do you all speak the same language? No, there are about 2,600 different languages and dialects spoken on our globe. What a perfect Babel your world must be. One universal language only is spoken on our planet. There are also about 1,000 different religions professed amongst our races and nations. You terrestrians have evidently flattered yourselves these many roads to heaven. There are these many roads to heaven. By no means. Each sect asserts its own religion to be the only true one, and declares that all others are in error. What a chaotic state of religion and spiritual affairs! Cannot your wise men set it to rights? Our philosophers and scientists do not interfere with these questions which appertain to the province of theology. Cannot your theologians adjust them? They seem unable to do so. Our barbarous and savage races are immersed in gross idolatry. Many of our half-civilized nations are equally wedded to their peculiar form of worship. Among our enlightened and civilized nations, many warring creeds prevail, which theologians are wholly unable to harmonize and denounce each other's form of religious belief and worship in unmeasured terms. Many of our enlightened and intelligent people worship God according to the dictates of their own consciences, while others reject all so-called religious faith and belief and embrace agnosticism, materialism, spiritualism, or atheism. I am quite ignorant of these terms. Please explain. I favored the doctor with a brief description of the so-called advanced and progressive thought, the fashionable philosophy of the day, so much affected by a certain set of easygoing, luxurious, worldly folk, scientific amateurs, intellectual fools, philosophical idiots, flippant women, brainless fops, et genus on, floating around among the literary coteries, clubs, and fashionable circles of our so-called polite society. Many centuries ago, a similar amusing class of individuals gifted with some more conceit than brains appeared in our Martian society and gathered around them circles of weak-minded ones, who joined them in coteries, clubs, etc., vaporizing their whimsical fantasies and absurd conceits for a while, then quietly sank into oblivion. With us, Martians, true religion, true science, and true philosophy go hand in hand, forming one grand and indissoluble trinity. Although our different races and nations each have their own different forms of government, laws, international policy, etc., and entertain their own peculiar opinions on other minor subjects, still all are in strict agreement on the one great subject, and that is supreme love and adoration to the almighty creator and ruler of the universe, and strict obedience to his commands. By observance of this one great law of life in our relations to God and to each other as nations and individuals, we can truly say that we are preserved from many evils and rewarded with many blessings. You seem to have attained the true philosophy of living, which is really the greatest blessing that there can possibly appertain to man in this lower sphere. True, and our great populations are happy and enjoy life in all things save one. What is the population of your planet? About 8,000 million, nearly 7 times that of Earth. How can you possibly support such vast numbers of people? Our planet is abundantly able to support many times that number. There is no crowding. Every man lives under his own vine and fig tree, so to speak. Every citizen of his family owns his own house, garden, and grounds, although their extent cultivation depends on the taste of the occupant. Such a thing as poverty or struggle for bread is unknown in our world. Everyone has enough to eat, drink, and wear. Labor of every kind is light and pleasing, with plenty of time for recreation, and every facility for the enjoyment of our honorable desires and inclinations. Your Martians seem to have almost reached the summa bonum of human happiness. What is the one drawback to this perfect enjoyment of which you spoke? Observe those immense frameworks covering the whole length of our linear cities, with their gardens, fields, woodlands, etc. I was just about to inquire the object in constructing your cities in this geometric style, and covering them with these great frameworks. They are for the protection of our lives, sustenance, and property. Protection? From what? From terribly destructive meteoric showers. Is it possible that these celestial phenomena, so harmless and beautiful in the skies of our world, are so dangerous in yours? Your Earth is in its yearly revolution around the sun encounters the outskirts only of one of several great meteoric belts traversing our solar system. As the showers fall through your atmosphere, which is twice the depth and density of ours, they are for the most part consumed to ashes before they reach the surface. Our planet passes through the center of one of the largest belts, which is more thickly strewn with much larger meteoric masses, and as our atmosphere is only half the depth and density of yours, they nearly all fall to the surface. During the period when the showers take place, certain parts of our planet are exposed to terrible destructive downfalls of masses weighing from many pounds to several tons. Thousands of our people have been killed, buildings and public work destroyed, crops nearly annihilated, and forests leveled. After one of these awful downpours, hundreds of square miles of land on our continents look as if they've been swept with tornadoes of fire, for many of these masses descend red hot and sometimes in streams of molten metal. This linear mode of our arranging our cities for the bulk of our populations, our gardens, forests, etc., which latter have been transplanted from other parts of the country, is the only means of protection. Our smaller cities, towns, country villas, etc., are similarly protected, as also those of all the continents and islands of our planet. Before the expected shower takes place, its exact date is always known. The frameworks are covered with metallic plates sufficiently strong to resist the heaviest downpour. The whole population and all the domestic animals are safely housed, even the birds from the surrounding forests, and sometimes wild animals. The few we have instinctively seek shelter under those roofs from the storm. The downpour is utterly awful and indescribable. It seems like a furious cannonade from the heavens. When it is over, our people emerge from their covers. The roof plates are removed, the meteoric debris gathered up and conveyed over great railways to the seashores. Many hundreds of miles of shoreline have been built out, ravines and valleys filled up, roadbeds laid with these masses. Many of the great land spaces lying between the city lines, some of which covered several thousand square miles of territory, are practically of little value for high cultivation, subject as they are to the destructive showers. How often, at what periods, are you subject to them? I asked. Once a year during our fall months always, and sometimes also during the spring. We have recurrences of them on a gigantic scale, and far more destructive at periods of about every 66 years, which corresponds to our 33-year period of recurrence according to our terrestrial astronomers. By midnight, we recrossed the shoreline and entered the great airy sea separating Mandal Ultima from Rosesland on the east. Our vessel descended to the water and moored up on the rocky base of a lofty headland near the Bay of Golomiaz, which penetrates the continent for many miles, and we retired for the night.